name is Andrea Cremer, and I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota in the United States. I teach history at a university there, and I am also the author of the Nightshade series, the first book of which was released a year ago, and Wolfsbane, the second book, and in French it's called L'Enfer de Loup, and it will be out shortly. It continues the adventures of Calla and her pack, and particularly explores the consequences that occur because she left the other wolves behind in Vale and is now in the hands of her enemies, the Searchers. I definitely think it's a feminist novel. My interest in feminism and history goes a long way back. I really believe that one of the things I try to explore in Nightshade, I call it a coming-of-age story, in that I want to think about the way we become who we are by asking questions about our world and learning where our hearts lie, whether it's about who we love or how we want to move through the world around us. And in the case of Calla, she is struggling between the expectation that she be a proper young lady who's protecting her virtue and is very modest, and the fact that she's falling in love for the first time and is having all sorts of passionate reactions to these encounters with both Ren and Shay. And I think that what I wanted to examine is the fact that, well, we often in society see examples where it's okay for boys to basically express their sexuality or lust. Girls are often told that they aren't able to be sexual at all, or if they are, then they're called a slut or other horrible names. And that's not fair at all, because being a sexual person can be strong. So Calla is fighting between the strength that she feels and the leader she is and the confinement that she experiences because of the rules of her world. Oh, that's so hard. But I do think it's a character who appears only in the second book, and she's in the third book as well, but she'll be new to readers who have read Nightshade already. Her name is Ariadne, and her nickname is Adne. She has an amazing ability. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but the job she does is called a weaver. She's a weaver, and she's just very strong and very feisty, and I think she's amazing, so I'm really excited for readers to get to know her. I always wanted to write young adult because I find that the age group of the protagonists, so teenagers, is such a wonderful kind of place of life to explore, because it is the point where you really begin to push the boundaries and look at your world as a place not just where things are the way they are, but that you are a contributing part of it, and that you are learning who you really want to be as a person. And I also love writing young adult because the readers are absolutely fantastic. I get emails and letters and Facebook messages all the time from all over the world, and the ability to share the love of characters and enthusiasm about the story is something that you get from a YA audience in a way that I think is unlike any other type of writing. Well, Blood Rose, the third book, concludes the trilogy. So it's the end of Calla's story, but I think there are a lot more stories to be told in the world. A lot of potential there, both in the future and in the past. But speaking of the past, what I am currently working on is a 2-book sequence that tell the story of the origins of the Witches' War. So that war that's been hundreds of years long started in the 1400s, and the books that I'm writing now are about how what was a unified group of witches became the Keepers and the Searchers, and why they've been at war with each other for so long. Fantasy definitely is experiencing a surge of popularity, and I think that it has to do with a desire for creativity. People often talk about it being an escape from this world, but I think it's actually, what I like to think of it as is, rather than escape, is a place where people are able to explore aspects of themselves or aspects of the world that aren't possible in the day-to-day situation where we're working or studying. So it allows us to expand our minds in a way that just regular literature might not. I think that all literature expands your mind, but I think fantasy is particularly good at letting people go a bit wild in terms of thinking about who they might be or how the world might work. And I think that retains an incredible appeal. And I think it's particularly appealing for young adults because they are learning who they can be in the world, and fantasy allows them to think that they could be maybe so much more than what the normal world would allow. A couple of things. One is that, and this will seem very straightforward, but it is a very important rule to follow, and that is simply that you must write. It's very important to write as often as you can and to write every day, because many aspiring authors who I speak to have lots of ideas, but they aren't forcing themselves to sit down and actually produce a creative work. That you can't think about writing without actually doing it. If you don't sit down and do the work, it's never going to happen. The other thing that's very important is to write what you're passionate about. Don't try to write a book to sell it or because you think it will be popular. You need to write a subject that you really care about. The kind of things that you love to read is what you should be writing, because writing requires your heart and soul, and you really have to be able to put that on the page. So if you're trying to do something because you think it will guarantee you success, it will almost certainly guarantee failure.